Hi there. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sarah Seidem, the managing editor of Groups Today.
And I'm Haley Gerwig, a media consultant with Groups Today.
Today we're going to be touching on some cybersecurity tips and basics that you should know. Now, this is something that a lot of people get intimidated by because it's just such an in-depth technology, but a lot of it is really simple. And a lot of these tips are things that are easy to recognize, and obviously it's super important for protecting both your information and your client's information. So what's interesting is that 11% of US adults have had their personal information stolen, and 1 in 5 people have had their email or social media hacked, but only 40% of adults know how to protect themselves against these type of attacks. So again, stressing the importance of why we're touching on this topic today. Starting with passwords.
Yeah, so when it comes to your passwords, you want to be sure you're using a mixture of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters. Research does show that using passwords with these elements does keep you more protected.
And additionally, consider setting up a firewall, and there are 2 options for doing that. There's hardware-based options. They create a protective barrier between your internal networks and the outside world. And another option is software-based options, which are often part of your operating system. And when you're browsing online, too, there's additional things you need to keep in mind.
Yes. So I did not know this, but when you're browsing online, be sure that the URL that you're looking at has HTTPS. So I've seen HTTP, but the S just means it's a more secure version. It's often indicated by a padlock in the address bar. So it keeps the communication that's happening between you and the site you're on.
Encryption is super important in protecting everybody's privacy. And speaking of that, there are a lot of people out there that try to do phishing and email scams, and there's a variety of ways that you can sort of identify them, starting with just the sender's address, their email address. It should correlate with their company. Sometimes it might be a name that looks familiar, but then when you actually look at the email address, see if it's at the business that they say they're from, or at a recognizable company. Sometimes if it's not, that's your first indicator something's off. In addition, grammatical errors. As an editor and a writer, this is something that I pick up on right away, but most reputable companies and businesses will not have glaring mistakes in their copy anywhere. So if you notice that, or it seems like they're not spelling things correctly, that could be an indicator too that it's also a scam.
Another red flag to be aware of is when you're not addressed by your name. So if someone's reaching out to you, they typically know who you are and what their intention is. So if you're not being addressed by your name, that's a indicator something's off. Another thing to be mindful of is if you're an immediate call to action is just, maybe reply right away or send me money. Something like that is usually a red flag. And finally, be wary of attachments. So don't open it right away before you've figured out if it's safe. Like Sarah said, use these other tips, check the email address, make sure they're addressing you by your name.
Yes, especially if you're not expecting anything, just take a pause. We all move so quickly through our day that sometimes we don't even think and we click. If it's from a sender you don't recognize, take a moment. And even if it is, consider why you're being sent that and if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Keeping all of these factors in mind, keep your network security on the up and up by doing regular updates and security checks, and be sure that your permissions for sensitive files are always up to date based on who's currently at your company and things like that. It's some regular maintenance and upkeep, but it's really worth it to keep your information and your client's information protected. And for more insight and things like this, please subscribe to Groups Today magazine and also our eDaily online at groupstoday.com. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.